So when we talk about data masking, we frequently get asked all the time, why is yours different than PeopleSoft? What's the difference? Why are you doing certain things? All of those types of things. What I'm going to do in this scenario is I'm actually just going to pull open um, a new record. Let's just do search here. And I'm going to grab, let's look at KU0010. What you're going to see here is this is a high privileged back office page. So yes, these people have access and need to be able to see this information. That doesn't mean it needs to be displayed to them all the time. So what we've done is we've implemented our click to views around this. So when you have that, what occurs is we can come in and mask certain information. There's no modification to the page whatsoever to be able to do this. But the nice part about it is it puts a couple of different controls in place. Number one is the data is not exposed. You can have a partial or a complete mask of the data. Now I would probably do a complete mask because even the last four is almost as sensitive as what all of the national ID may be. But if the user needs to validate it or expose that information, it becomes very easy to do that with the click to view. So now they've exposed the information. What we've done with that, though, is we've created very targeted specific logs. So now when you're needing to maybe answer that question for GDPR of who's accessed my data, around the click to view, it becomes very, very easy. So I'm going to go back to the dashboards here real quick. I'm going to click back to the dashboards and I'm going to look at the ASP click to view usage. By doing that, you're going to see that I have employee ID KU0010. I also have the user ID was PS1. That's who I just signed in as. We can track the IP address. We can do geo mapping. We've got a bar chart. We can also show you if it's occurred outside of business hours. So if somebody's trying to work or do something at 3 o'clock in the morning, you would be able to see it and it would call out very quickly. But also the raw detail. So we've got that date timestamp, the user who signed in, their IP address, their country, city, the component that they accessed, the page that they're on, and then also what field was accessed. Why is that important? Because we don't want to propagate that sensitive information. We just want to let you know that they viewed that information. You can have notifications set up on any of these types of things as well. But that quickly allows you to know exactly what information was viewed by a particular user. If I think about that, if I go back over to the page and look at it, for example, by default, all of this information is going to be displayed. So I have to track every single view of that page. I need to know every time somebody's accessed that page for compliance rules. Why? Because all of the data would have been exposed to them by default without having the click to view in place. So that changes the scope of how I need to worry or think about how that system is being processed and what might be being accessed. So if I need to report on certain access, it becomes very easy to do because we have that check in there and that check and balance of, yes, this person's data has been viewed. Here it is specifically at this date timestamp, for example. So it closes that up very, very easily. The nice part about it is if you think about a holistic approach as to what happens over time in my system. Let's say PS1 is your PeopleSoft administrator or some other role. I want to see everything that they have looked at. So I can filter out. I can either do it by the user ID who signed in, or I can look at the individual employee ID. One, that can help with different privacy laws or different compliance issues. Who's accessed or seen my data? Tell me everybody who's seen the CEO, chairman of the board, all of those types of scenarios. So if I want to look specifically at just PS1, maybe they're putting in their notice and they're leaving. I want to know what they did over the last 30, 90 days. Now I can see all of the data that they accessed. Did they access things that they weren't supposed to? What IP addresses did they access the system from when they did those click to views? How many occurred outside of normal business hours? Bar chart as to where it all occurred, geo mapping of those, and we can see, where all that happened as well from the actual raw data. So it becomes, you can see different fields. So I have a date of birth click to view as well as the national ID. So very quickly you can track not only the information, but you can see a picture of what that user is doing inside of your system to understand the application of are they doing anything they shouldn't be doing? Another important feature too is you can select a pillar. So let's say you're running maybe financials or HCM and campus solutions. Well, you can select holistically across all of them, or you can narrow down to one individually. Also, you can select which environment you want to look at. So in HCM, maybe you do have a dev, you have a test, a stage, QA, production. So going back to some of those scenarios before of, hey, somebody accessed somebody's information in dev. Okay, let's go find out exactly who accessed that information in dev. So you can look at that holistically and dial in specifically to the application or the environment that you need to look for at that particular for that user.